So, welcome to another edition of Future Business, brought to you by your host, James Moffat, myself, and Visibility Impact, the company I represent. So today we have our 73rd guest, right? 73rd guest, wow. And all the way from Sydney, Australia is Ralph with the tan. So
Thank you for having me, James.
Yeah, no problem. Ralph, I'm terrible with names, so if you could just pronounce your surname, then that would be great.
Anania.
Anania.
Yeah, that's how they say it in Australia. If you were in Europe, it'd be Anania.
Anania. Okay. I would have got that wrong, so I'm glad you said it. So we've had guests from all over the world, you see, and some of them have really difficult names, particularly some of our Russian guests or Eastern European ones. So Ralph Anania.
Correct.
Okay, right. Today we're going to find out a bit about you and your business. But before about your business, a bit about you. So welcome, Laszlo.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you again.
And Laszlo, just quickly, where are you from?
I'm from Hungary, but live in Switzerland, in Geneva.
Right. Paul's in Durban, New Zealand, South Africa. Zara is in London, and Boyan in Bulgaria. Right. Okay. So let's make a start. So typically, what we do here, the spotlight, Ralph, is on you. You can ask questions as we go through. To the audience, they can ask you questions. I typically steer it based on the questionnaire that I've sent out. So we've got a bit of a guidance on which journey we're going to go. And if there's anything that we want to focus on in particular, we can. Otherwise, I'm just going to kind of make this free flowing. And then at the end, leave the audience with something that, a message or a takeaway that they can have at the end. But before we get started, we normally have Emily, and our lovely Emily that normally sings a live song. But unfortunately, she can't make it today because she does a lot. Paul must still have technical problems. She normally can't make it because she does a camp and things for kids. So she's got a YouTube channel and she's told me like, give me a selection of songs to play. So I'm just going to switch over and we're just going to listen to her and then we'll come straight back and then Ralph, the spotlight's on you. So I'm just going to share my screen. Right. And then you should also hear Emily in a minute, and Paul's back just in time. Should be back just in time. All right, are you still with me? Right. Okay, you can see the screen.
Yep.
Okay, so here we go.
Yes.
I'm thinking of you. I'm thinking of you in my sleepless solitude tonight. If it's wrong to love you, then my heart just won't let me be right. 'Cause I've drowned in you, and I won't pull through without you by my side. I'd give my all to have just one more night with you. I'd risk my life to feel yet you're so far, like a distant star. I'm wishing on tonight. I'd give my all to have just one more night with you. I'd risk my life to feel your body next to mine, 'cause I can't go on living in the memory of our song. I give my all for your love tonight. I give my all for your love tonight.
Thank you, thank you.
Beautiful. So, right, I've got to stop this other music now.
Did I ask you to put the link to our YouTube in the thing down there for me?
But 1 second. Can you hear the music or not?
Yes, I could hear it. Not
You
now.
can't get rid of it. Right. 1 second. Right. Got rid of that. Okay, so we're back. Right. So you heard that lovely song by Emily?
Yes, we did. Well, I did.
Okay. Everyone heard her okay? Right, okay. So Emily normally arrives, but she says she's looking after a very small, cute little baby. So I said, come on the show and show the baby. But it's not hers. Right, so I don't know whose it is. So, Ralph, let's begin with you. So a 73rd guest. So Ralph, you're in the hot seat. So we all want to know who Ralph is. So if you can tell us, first of all, where you are and where you were born.
So I'm in Sydney, Australia.
Yeah.
I was born in a western suburb about 50 kilometres from Sydney called Penrith. So I am a local. Not that long ago, I won't tell you how long ago, but not that long ago, because I won't share my age with you, but yes, parents are Italian.
Looking at the tan and everything, 35.
Yes, I wish. So parents are Italian. So I've got 2 brothers, 2 sisters, and I am 4th in line. So the 3 before me were all born in Italy, and myself and a younger brother were born in Australia. So yes, Italian born, but Australian born, but Italian blood.
A question, do you have pizza in Australia?
Yes, of course.
So, Ralph, were your parents born in Australia?
No, they were born in Italy.
All right. And they migrated or emigrated there?
Yeah, so my dad came out in 1960, and then mum came out 2 years after in 1962. So dad came out to find a better life, I guess, to start or to find a better home for mum and the kids. And he left. He was born in Calabria, which you'd give anything to be living there now. But in those days, it was very tough. There was no work around, so most of my aunties and uncles moved from there to Milan. So they're basically, they moved north, and a lot of them worked in Switzerland, and are now all retired, or most of them are. A couple of them have passed, but. And then Dad started his own business after a few years of being in Australia, he started in the fresh produce industry, and that was sort of where fresh produce became part of our DNA in the family for many years.
Right. So they did find a better life in the end away from Italy, or they believed it was the best thing that they ever did?
Well, at the time, yes, because it was tough times in the late 50s, and they felt that everybody was moving in different parts of the world, and my grandfather had come to Australia a few years beforehand, and then my dad sort of followed, with others in the family, and
So do you
just
have dual
continued.
nationality?
Sorry.
Do you have dual nationality?
I'm actually, well, I'm applying for it. COVID hasn't helped, but I would have had it by now, yes.
Okay.
So I haven't got it yet, but I'm applying for it.
But you've been to Italy, I mean, over the years.
Yep.
And would you ever consider living in Italy?
I don't think so.
All right. So to you, Australia is home.
It is, yeah.
But you have traveled extensively around the world,
Yes, I have traveled a lot.
mainly because of business.
So for a number of years, I traveled to present at conferences for the fresh produce industry. So I was asked as a guest speaker. So we're sort of a bit ahead of ourselves here, but I'd built one of the top 5 fresh produce companies in the country, and had that for many years, and we were leaders in every possible way that you could think of, because I was very innovative. So therefore, the industry followed a lot of what we had set in place. So I was asked to speak at conferences, to do with fresh produce. So I traveled extensively for that for a while, and then in 2012 I got out of the industry completely and sold my last business in that industry, and I went out and pursued what I love doing, was speaking. And since then I've had the opportunity to speak in 14 different countries, across the globe, and shared the stage with many of our greatest thought leaders of our time, and presented to literally thousands and thousands of people over that time. So yes, I have travelled for work professionally, and also holidaying. So I've done quite a bit of travel.
Excellent. And you mentioned that you've got brothers and sisters. I mean, do they live in Australia?
Yep. So we're all here. We're all local. We're all very close. My younger brother and I were in business together for 27 years.
Wow.
And then when we sold our last business together, which was 2012, he's continued doing his thing in produce. He's still in the produce industry, and I went out and completely changed what I basically had started out as, and speaking, consulting, mentoring, businesses, and basically turning businesses around. So anyone that's having a major challenge with their business, or is looking for growth, I've become pretty well known for being able to turn businesses around. So I don't go into a business that I haven't seen or shared or experienced anything that they're going through, because I've lived it and breathed it for so long, which is not that common in the coaching world these days, because there are a lot of coaches out there, but not many of them have actually owned a business where they can deliver an experience. So I've seen a lot of businesses suffer with the wrong advice, and that's been a passion of mine, to make sure that the small business owners continue to grow and evolve, because mum and dad businesses, small businesses, are the backbone to every country's economy. and you know, unfortunately, over the years, you know, the bigger organisations have been you know, shutting smaller businesses down, and it's sad because they really do drive economies, and this is what we're looking to continue to push, is that smaller business to be able to evolve and bring, you know, work and money flowing through economies, because the larger organisations just, you know, they just seem to take. So that's where I like to position myself. But I love working with families. I love working with businesses that have some substance. I don't really work with corporations. I choose not to. That's just my personal preference, that I prefer to work with smaller family businesses. I mean, some of them are still quite large, but they're still a family business, because I can make a real difference in the business. Whereas a corporation, you're working with people, but there's no passion, there's no drive, there's no real desire in it. It's just a job for most of those people, regardless of what level they are. It's just a job. So
if we kind of take you back a little bit on your journey, you mentioned about your father was into kind of natural products and local communities and everything else, and then you said that you're in business with your brother for 27 years. I mean, to do with something similar.
So Dad had your typical corner store. You know, that's basically what he had. Like, you know, it was a family business. We were in there before school, after school. Earlier on in the years, we would only trade 5.5 days. So it was sort of Saturday, we'd sort of shut shop at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and there was no Sunday trade. You just weren't allowed to trade in the early days on a Sunday. And then in 1984, I acquired my first business with my two brothers, my older brother and younger brother. We bought an ailing, you know, fruit market in the northern suburbs, and it was turning over about 600,000 a year. And in 5 years, we'd built that to 10 million.
Wow! And
it basically just continued from there. And then we went into wholesaling, manufacturing, processing, providoring. We just continued to grow, and we just, you know, acquired and grew till we got to about 137 million, 350 staff, 7 locations, and you know, we sold out to a publicly listed company at the end of that day. But along, you know, that's a pretty quick journey. But along the way, I mean, I've built 31 companies now over 37 years. So, you know, the longest one was obviously the one that I've just told you. But yeah, it's predominantly been fresh produce and fresh food manufacturing. So I enjoy the food space purely and simply because regardless of what's happening in the economy around the globe, people still have to eat. And in all the years that I've been in business, I've seen 3 or 4 global economy collapses or disruptions, and when that occurs, you know, whether it's you know, a financial disaster or not, there's a ripple, but there's no peaks and troughs, because, you know, people still have to eat. So you're sort of the last industry to get affected and the first to recover, because food is food. People still have to eat. So it's been an interesting journey, because there's been a lot of development and a lot of change over the years with food and food standards. And we've seen a cycle. So we've gone from, you know, having a product that actually, you know, looks and tastes great, to a product that handles well on the shelf but has no taste, to now where the product is back to where it was, you know, in the early days, where, you know, it actually tastes like it looks, and it's, you know, you're buying a real product. So, you know, and not that the product was manufactured, but the supermarkets drove farmers to produce a product that would withstand the public's handling. And when you do that, you're not, you know, you're playing with Mother Nature. So therefore, you're not going to get the product that is going to taste the way it should taste. You're just going to get a product that will handle the human hands that handle it in the store. But that's sort of done a complete turnaround now, and you're seeing more and more natural, more and more organic products that are becoming available, because people want they want to be as close to a natural product as they possibly can without the chemicals and without the man-made part of it. So so to speak, the genetic changes that they apply. So it's an interesting industry that a lot of people, the average consumer doesn't understand all the varieties of products there is. Like if we're talking just simple stone fruit, which is peaches, nectarines, plums, apricots, those sort of fruit, like just nectarines, there's over 700 varieties. Plums, there's over 800 varieties. It's just mind-boggling. People just don't understand. They go, oh, yeah, it's a red plum or a green plum, or a yellow plum. But it's the varieties that make the difference here, and it's only because of the genetics that have been changed over the years that there's so many varieties that have been put on the market.
Yeah. So do you think you got into this type of business because of your father's influence at the beginning?
Yeah, look, I spent pretty much all of my younger years, from about the age of 4, hanging on to my dad's coattail, because he would take me to the central markets, and I enjoyed the hustle and bustle. And it was, in those days, it really was a hustle and bustle sort of an industry, and I just loved it. It was early morning risers. You're getting up at 3 a.m. in those days, and then I didn't really do that well at school, because there was a period there where there was a lot of bullying happening. I mean, bullying wasn't even a word in those days, but it was predominantly Australian, and being Italian, we're probably a very minute part of the school, and having the local fruit shop, sort of didn't help in a way. So it was sort of I didn't really enjoy school, so I didn't really do that well, and I enjoyed the hands-on working in the store. I enjoyed going to the central markets, watching Dad negotiate and trade with with farmers that were part of it. But more importantly was the business aspect. Was just growing the business, the negotiation side. I mean, we talk about negotiation, and I've written a number of different courses over the last 10 years, but one of them in particular that I love teaching is negotiation, because over a 30-year period, I would have negotiated a minimum of 100, a minimum of 100 suppliers a day, for a 30-year period. So you talk about negotiation, it's not just about what you can get out of the other party. It's about understanding what both parties want, and coming to an understanding, because it's got to be long term. And that's what I love doing. I mean, I love that part of it. I love the excitement of negotiating, of selling, of just the dealing side of it, which kept me in the game.
Yeah. So what kind of age were you there when you went with your father in the morning, getting up so early?
So look, he started taking me to the markets with him when I was 4.
Wow.
And and then during all the school holidays, I would go with him, and then pretty much from the age of about I was 20 when I acquired my first store. I was 20 years of age, and then that was when it became pretty significant, because the business grew to a 7-day, 24-hour operation. Like we just never closed. It just manufacturing, you can't afford to close, because you've got to keep machinery working. So we'd run different shifts, and the place would run all the time. But we'd probably, for a lot of years, I'd say a good 20 odd years, I would have between 2 and 3 a.m. Starts, and I would never really get home before 5 in the afternoon. So they were pretty long days for a long time. But there's a fair amount of adrenaline that pumps through, so it keeps you going.
So this was with all the siblings, or just the
No,
sons?
just myself and my younger brother.
All right, okay. But when you came to start your own business, or do your business with your brothers, again, and you grew this empire, then you sold it, then Did you do any other business with them, or was that just kind of the only one, and you moved on to different things?
So my older brother had an accident only after the first couple of years that we're together, and he sort of then, was out of the scene for a little while, and then later on in life he came and worked for us. But the business aspect was just always my younger brother and I. It was always the two of us. And we had acquired quite a number of businesses in between. We had a transport company, we had an IT company.
Wow.
We designed a lot of our own systems. We at one stage we had 5 programmers working for us. We were one of the first online ordering companies in Australia. I'm talking 20 years ago. I think it was like 96, 97, 98. We were sort of one of the first to go to online. It was, we were pioneers in a lot of ways in the fresh produce industry. But there were other aspects of it. So we were in retail as well. We had 7 retail stores at one stage that were quite large as well. So there was a number of different businesses that we had interests in.
So was this really down to basically, was it your grandfather or your father that had that entrepreneurial mindset, and to do something, open the store, and then from there involve the family, and then nurture
No, that was Dad. That was my dad.
Uh, so he helped you become an entrepreneur, because I mean you learned more from him, I guess, than you did going to school.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What I learned hands on, we would never be able to teach it. We'd never be able to get that taught at school. And again, with business, having been in business and navigated through, it's not all roses and sunshine, because there's been some pretty close calls. I've come close to bankruptcy 3 times over the 37 years. I've never been bankrupt, but coming close is worse than being bankrupt, because bankruptcy is when people just give up and they go, I've had enough. But when you've got obligations, you just keep fighting, and you keep fighting, but you keep growing as well. And that's the lessons. The lessons come through the fighting, and most people, tend to give up too early. And I've always honoured, my obligations, so therefore I kept fighting. And it's important, but that's where the lessons sort of come from, and no university in the world will teach you that.
So you learnt a lot also from your siblings. I mean, as in being in business with your brothers and so on, and your father's help. I mean, you've learned the pitfalls as well, and maybe things to avoid, although you can't always avoid everything, but you've learned how to fight to come out of it and be successful.
Yeah, look, I guess my father was a lot more conservative. My father never owed anybody anything. He didn't buy anything unless he could pay for it. In those days it was cash. So everything that he would have was always paid for. Didn't have a credit card. I mean, it was just, that was how the way he ran the business. So it was a small operation. It was very small, but at the end of the week he knew that whatever money he made was his, right? So, but when you're entrepreneurial, you want to keep growing, because I'm not the type of person where I would be happy just owning a little coffee shop. That's not me. I couldn't own a cafe, right? It would bore me to tears. So, and again, one of the things that has happened through COVID is that the lockdowns and the lack of being able to present has been like really, I've been like a caged lion. So I haven't, I presented my first live event a couple of weeks ago, and it was just totally different, because it's been over 2 years now that I have not travelled. So in that time, I'm in the process and just at the final stages of an acquisition. But again, it's not an acquisition of a small business. It's $100+ million business, and it's in the food manufacturing space. So I'm just hungry to get back into into that space and be hands on. That's just
Okay. This will be yourself or with brothers?
Yeah, it'll be myself this time, and I've got some pretty good support with a couple of very very close friends that are experienced in different areas, one in law and one in accounting. So, they handle that side of it, and as CEO, I'll just run the organisation. But there's two major loves that I have as far as the working life goes, and one of them is building a large organisation, and the second one is speaking. I enjoy sharing my wisdom with
right. So let's come on to speaking, because you've got a memorable experience that you want to share with us about your first gig, effectively. But just before we go there, so you have children as well?
Yes, I've got three. Yes, two girls and a boy. My youngest turned 20 last Friday. My middle daughter's 22, and my eldest will be 26 in a few weeks. So my eldest is a school teacher, middle daughter's doing medicine, and my youngest is doing sports management.
Wow. So do they take after their father with that entrepreneurial?
Very, very much so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, very much so.
And would you say, I mean, within the family community, particularly with your siblings, there's a good, strong family connection?
Oh yeah, the family connection is there because of our background and our culture. That's pretty strong. We all get on pretty well, and there's a lot of support there for each other.
Do you speak Italian?
Business wise, sorry.
Do you speak Italian?
Yep. Yep. Probably not as good as they do in Italy, but yeah, I speak Italian. So
okay.
yeah.
All right. So let's tell us about, because I mean, you've kind of grown up with something that kind of your father was your inspiration as well. He was kind of a mentor to you, and you've done something. You've seen the real world. You've got hands-on experience. You've grown a business and empire. You've gone through kind of the peaks and troughs, the roller coaster ride, and how did you? And with that, it's taught you a lot about how you can mentor and teach others with entrepreneurial stuff. So tell us about your first public speaking event, and how did that come about, and how was it?
So I was invited to speak at a conference, and in the fresh produce industry, there are different sectors. So you would have, like, citrus would have their own organization, melons would have their own organization, and they're just, they're different organizations that are running that category. So farmers and suppliers can be connected. And I was invited to speak at a conference specifically on melons, and it was just, it was off the cuff.
On melons?
Yeah. So it's a massive industry, massive industry. Yeah. So I was invited to speak there, and in the audience, when I was, there's about 80 people, I think, in the room, and it was like really jam-packed, but it was just they were asking me questions, and I was just answering the questions, and it was really good. It was great. And I just, was full of confidence, and it was phenomenal. And that wasn't really a speaking gig, and it was like not really my first like like real speaking engagement. In that audience, at the end of the Q&A, a lady came and asked me if I would be interested in speaking at a national conference for fresh produce, which was to be held in Canberra, which is our national state here, where Parliament House is, in a couple of weeks' time. And I said, yeah, of course. I was like full of confidence, and absolutely, I was in my 20s at that stage, so it was no problem. And the drive to Canberra in those days was about 3 hours. So I drove down with my general manager, and I really didn't prepare anything, right? It was like, I thought that it was going to be a Q&A thing again, and here we go, right? I'd never spoken in front of an audience. Anyway, I had an hour slot to speak, and I got up on stage. My mouth was as dry as, I couldn't say a word. They had to bring me a glass of water. I spoke for 8 minutes, and there was 650 people there.
Oh, wow.
And I had never been, so embarrassed in my entire life. But it was one of the greatest lessons I've ever learned, because since then, I've spoken, I've presented now hundreds of times, and my biggest audience has been 5,500 in Singapore and Malaysia. I was very well known in Singapore and Malaysia for many, many years. And now, put me in front of an audience without, I've had, as a speaker, you have to be prepared, because there's been so many times where the AV doesn't work, or halfway through a presentation it crashes, and you get to the point where you just continue, you just continue and you engage the audience, and that's what I love doing. So I'm not one of these speakers that paces the stage. I actually get off the stage and I like to walk amongst the crowd, which the promoters hate, because the camera has to follow you, but I enjoy doing it because I'm connecting with people, and I like to connect with people.
Exactly.
I don't speak to an audience, I speak to people. So
exactly. No, I love it. I love it in the way that you see kind of something that was an embarrassment. I mean, maybe being too cocky, thinking that I can do this, and I go there and I screw it up big time, because that's the time you start learning.
Well, it was exactly that. I mean, it was just, I was full of ego. I was overconfident, and I failed dismally. But it drove me to want to do it better. And today, look, it's a very different beast today. Like when I say that, and I say that because I am confident in what I do and what I present. And the beauty about what I present today is that there are so many stories that I can share over all the years of being in business, that I could be speaking on a topic and presenting on that topic 100 times and give you 100 different stories that are connected to that topic, but those stories are real because they're mine, and I share so many of them, and that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of it when you've lived it and breathed it yourself. Whereas I've shared the stage with many speakers who have copied other speakers, never experienced anything, and they've basically just been very, very good at copying, and I've experienced that myself. So just to give you a bit of an understanding, a few years ago I did a tour in Asia, and the tour overlapped Malaysia and Singapore. So basically we started in Malaysia, right, and it was 4 days in Malaysia and then 4 days in Singapore, but day 4 in Malaysia was day 1 in Singapore, right? So basically whoever presented in Malaysia would have already left and gone to Singapore. When I had got to Singapore, someone had used a part of my presentation in their presentation, and that's what happens a lot. That people would then use your stuff. Now in the commercial world, we know R&D, there's R&D, and everyone knows that R&D is research and development, right? Mm-hmm. In the speaking world, R&D is rip off and duplicate, right? So most people do that, and they do, and they do it a lot. And as you know, James, I spent 2.5 years traveling with 𝗘𝗔𝗥𝗏, and we used to see it all the time, and you had to be super sharp, because these people would just, would steal your content, and if you went on stage after them and presented your presentation and they've already stolen it, the audience thinks you've stolen it from them. Yeah. So the beauty of my presentations is that, I can share the same message with a different story, because I've got so many stories to share. And they're my stories,
Is it a lot? I mean, I know that we crossed paths on a few occasions, but I mean, particularly, like, as you said, with Kane and Alessia, and then also with Kevin Harrington. I mean, Kevin Harrington, I mean, you couldn't mimic him because his stories are unique. So when you have your own unique stories, then they could copy them, but it's not them, because it's their story and everybody knows it's their story. So when you find your uniqueness and something that is personal, and like, as you say, if you know your own stories and what it is that you're going to say, you don't need anything. You've got the story inside you. You're just going to share that story. And I
Yeah,
think
which
that's
is
what makes others great, because you don't need slides.
Oh, absolutely. Look, you know, when you get to, you know, the level of presenting that I've got to, and I've been blessed with being able to have the opportunity to present as often and as broad as I have. You know, the slides are just to keep you on track, because when I'm saying this, you know, genuinely, you know, when you have experienced so much, you can sometimes get off track, because you're telling a story that goes to another story, and you know, you're giving different examples, but they're real examples. So you know, the slides for me are just to keep me on track, so it flows. I don't kill the audience by slides. You know, it's just, you know, I've seen people present, and I won't mention names because it's not right to mention names, but you know, I've seen people present where they've had 700 slides. And basically reading from the slide, and it is just death by PowerPoint, and it's ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. It's like sitting there, and it's boring as, because you know, you've got your workbook in front of you with the blanks, and then the slides are basically just filling the blanks, and there's no connection. You know, I like the connection. That's what I like.
Yeah, exactly. But if you think back, I mean, this was kind of the old school way. I mean, when I first got into sales, right, it was everything, you know, so you're the sales team, and then marketing is a different team, and so on. Now, you can't go to a meeting until you get the slide deck from marketing. So you have to go and get and then they'll say, right, make sure you mention these new features. Well, they don't know the customer or the potential customer, but they want to sell you to present their features. So then you go to the meeting and you're obsessed with getting through the slides, and did you mention the features? Then you have to mention the features. I said, what do you find out about the customer and their needs and problems? Well, I never asked those questions. I was doing the slides. And that seems to be a typical way. I mean, slides, like, as you say, should be kind of maybe a visual effect if you want someone to see something, or as a markers, so to keep you on track for your timing, to make sure you cover all the things you need to cover.
Yes, I think most people hide behind the slides, and that's where you know, the corporate world. That's why I don't like the corporate world, or like working in that space, because look, I like to, when I'm working with small businesses, I like to always bring the teams together and create the champion team rather than the team of champions. Unfortunately, in the corporate world, that's what you have. You have a team of champions, because everybody in the corporate world wants to be individual. They want to be the person that's the best at whatever they're best at, but they don't form a team. They don't form a champion team. And this is why then you get every department having to put their bid in. But that's the culture. That's the culture of corporate. So it's, yeah, look, it's been a journey. It's been a great experience, and I've loved it. Unfortunately, COVID has done what COVID has done, and you know, it's not the same. I was a guest on a program in Canada about 3 months ago, and I had a 90-minute presentation to deliver, and there was 3,500 people on the call. Wow. And I was here in my office at home, and let me tell you, it was the hardest presentation I've ever done. Yeah. Because I had to keep the energy up, and I had no idea what the energy felt like from anybody, because you're talking to a screen. And I know that there's been a lot of that through COVID, and I've been interviewed probably 200 times over the last 2 years, and it's all been online. But when you deliver to a live audience, it's totally different, because you feel the energy, you know.
Yeah, we'll just come to that in a moment. So, I mean, you've gone back to doing some real live things with an audience. So just tell me about kind of going from the natural products and everything else, and everything, and the business that you're looking to acquire now. Where did the entrepreneurial business kind of mentoring come into that? How did you go into that? And then you focused on a lot of small businesses and helping them.
Great question, and I'm glad you raised it, because I fell into it. I really fell into it. So when I sold my business back in the main business in 2010, one of my suppliers was going through a really tough time and I didn't know about it. And because I had had 3 very close calls over the years, financial close calls, this supplier called me and asked me to go and see him. And he said to me, he said, Ralph, he said, we're in a really difficult situation. The bank's ready to foreclose on us. You've been in some difficult situations. You know, how did you get out of it? What did you do? So basically, the short story is that I basically took over negotiations with the banks and saved their business. So I went in because there was no attachment. I wasn't emotionally attached to the business, and they were literally 3 days away from bankruptcy. The banks were going to foreclose. So I took over the negotiations. I presented the bank with a plan on what we were going to do moving forward. Mind you, I'd never done any of this before. It was just that, you know, I wasn't emotionally attached. I'd experienced that with the banks before, but this time I was on the other side because I wasn't emotionally attached. I didn't care what was going to happen because there was no loss in it for me. So I spoke to the banks the way that they need to be spoken, and I basically put them in their place. So they gave us 6 months grace. I helped them turn their business around as a favor. I didn't charge them anything. And then about 20 months later, I orchestrated a sale. One of their competitors wanted to buy them out, and they sold for 14.7 million.
Oh.
And I quickly became known as the turnaround expert. And that's how it happened. It's really how it happened. It was just purely and simply because of that. And then it just flowed on and on and on. And, you know.
So I hope you're rewarded for that then.
Yeah, I was. Absolutely, I was at the end. But I didn't do it for that, and I didn't ask for it.
No.
You know, it was just it was just me. It was my entry level to a different world. You know, and I enjoyed it, and I've done it. You know, now for 10 years to 12 years now.
So the typical clients then over that period of time were what sort of businesses?
Predominantly food related, because that's what I'm well known for. But I have had clients in Western Australia in the mining industry, in the electrical, plumbing, transport. I've got a few different farming sectors. I've got a client currently at the moment that owned 3 egg farms. You know, and we're talking, you know, large organizations, like they would turn over probably 50 million a year. So, you know, they're small businesses, but they're not small, as in they're family businesses, but they're, you know, like this client is, you know, 55 years in the business, right? So, you know, they're not startups. I don't really work with startups. I work with businesses that have been, you know, that are established or looking to grow and evolve. That's who I work with.
So I think Sarah's got a question.
Yeah, Ralph, I have a question regarding the travel industry, which has been very badly hit, obviously because of COVID. Now, I was working with a close friend of mine last year. Sayed, you met him, he was on the show. And one particular client he had was very badly hit by COVID. And, you know, that kind of got dragged through the courts. How would you handle a travel business, a small business now through COVID, through to some kind of, you know, so that they don't go under?
Look, that's it's a difficult question to answer, only because you got to understand where they're at, like right now. Like, what's their position? What have they experienced? And how far, you know, how deep are they in trouble, right?
Big time, big time trouble to the point where it's just kind of like bordering bankruptcy, that kind of.
Yeah. So one of the first things that you need to do is you need to stop the bleeding. So basically, you need to speak to whoever is owed money and stop. And they just basically have to stop, so there's no pressure. And then you've got to basically rebuild yourself. So in every economic downfall, there's always an upside, right? And you've got to be able to generate what that disruption is going to look like, right? So they've got to reinvent themselves and continue to reinvent themselves. But this is the challenge with most businesses, is they get too comfortable and they become complacent and they never think of what could happen, right? Whereas you know, there's in the business life cycle, You know, I teach the business life cycle the same as a human life cycle. You know, we've got our birth years that, you know, we nurture the business, we look after it. The teenage years is when there's full of confidence, you're really pumping hard. Then there's that comfort zone where there's the retirement years, you know, and that's when businesses start to fall away. And I always say that's the time that you need to reinvent yourself. And reinvent yourself means, you know, get back into that nurturing and then rebuilding again. And that's how I've grown my business over the years. So, unfortunately, a lot of people get too comfortable, too complacent, and then they're too far gone. And it is sad. I've had a couple of situations over the last few years where businesses have come to me too late, and I really feel bad for it. I still help them, and I help them negotiate, you know, where they're at, and I usually don't even charge them because they can't afford me, but I try to help them through, but they've just come to me too late and they're too far gone. They've made decisions that I can't change. So it's really looking at their position where they are currently, see if they can just put a stop to it so they don't get forced into any corner, and then give themselves the opportunity to reinvent. The reason most people won't reinvent in that period is because their head is so full of who they owe money to and that they're going to go bankrupt that they're not thinking about growing. Right? It's basically, I need to come up with money to pay these creditors. But that's not the answer, right? The answer is talk to all the creditors, put a stop to the pressure, and try and create a pathway out so you can, not only can they support you, but you can pay them. Because if you're a creditor of mine, I'm going to say to you, Zara, look, this is a situation. I have no way of paying you right now. I'm not walking away. I'm going to try, but I can't handle the pressure. You know, I can go bankrupt and you'll get nothing. But if you give me the time, I will reinvent myself, and with the reinvention will be an opportunity for us to continue to grow our business with you as a supplier. But I need the support now. Not only will I be able to pay you back, but you'll also grow your business longer term. Now, that has happened multiple times. Most people don't know how to do that, though. Most people get caught up in fear.
I think in this particular case, Ralph, there was a case of, there was a lot of buy-to-let type properties involved, as well as a business, and there was lots of mortgages and remortgages. And so this particular person was in a hell of a lot of debt. And they'd hired a whole bunch of hotels, if you can imagine, and sold a whole bunch of holidays as well. And then suddenly COVID happened. So now you owe a whole bunch of money to the people. They want their money back, and then you paid the hotel and nobody's going there. And then there's all these mortgages. So it was a right old mess. So I don't really know how you could really stop that blood, because I think she overcommitted right at the beginning. There was no risk assessment. And like you say, just assumed way too much.
Yep, and one thing that I always do is I mitigate as much risk as I can. So if that was me in that situation, I would look at, if I am forward selling, right? I would look at insurance, how I could insure that. That's what I would do, and there is insurance available for that. But you see, people don't know, right? Most small businesses don't know what's available to them.
Sure.
Anyway, before we run out of time, Ralph, I want to come on to a couple of things. So first of all, the business, are you leaving the entrepreneurial kind of mentoring small businesses world behind to do something different now?
No, I'm not. I'm still going to continue that because I enjoy it, and there are people that rely on me. And if I was to leave them, they, you know, probably would. Okay. I'd have to get therapy for them, but no, I'll still have that because I've got a couple of people that work for me as well. So
and you have clients internationally, or just mainly in the?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I have clients in the US, in Canada, in New Zealand, and Australia.
Oh, excellent. So the other thing is a couple of things more before we kind of wrap up. So the business that you're acquiring now, that is more for personal passion, kind of going back to the roots of where you originated from.
Yeah, look, the story behind it was that I was called in to try and help them. 3 families are involved in the business. They've been around for 20 odd years. There's no agreements between them, and 20 years on, they've grown this large business and have no idea on how to take it to the next level. So I couldn't help them because of the internal issues, the internal family issues, and made them an offer, and they accepted. So you know, hopefully we're very, very, very close to that happening. It should have happened, but we've just been through, you know, too many lockdowns, you know, that have caused us delays.
So you don't ever fancy just taking it easy and sitting on a beach or something? You want to carry on, keep serving the needs of people?
Yeah, as I said, my youngest is 20. They're all doing their own thing now, and it just allows me to go back out and really get into a business and to keep, you know, this active, because that's the biggest issue that you have. And the problem is that when you go into a family business, there's only so much you can do for them, because if they're not willing to change, then, you know, you can't make them change. And a lot of people want to change, but they don't actually know how to change, and sometimes, you know, it becomes a little bit frustrating. So I just needed to get back into something that I can be driven and just be mentally what's the word? Keep my mind active, you know, mentally active. Yeah.
Okay. So anyway, let us know how that develops, because we'd be interested. So are there any questions that you have to the audience or Bojan?
I do have. It's very interesting to hear your stories and what you do. I have a question. Since so the family business is maybe how also you grow from your father, then yourself. Do you have kind of like methodology to put it as a culture in a bigger organizations, like the big corporate world, so to have the feeling of the family? This is one thing.
Yeah.
And the other question is, you touch very important point that nowadays, not only nowadays, but for the companies when they grow, if they don't put the innovation as part of their activities, they may be going to disappear one day. So this is something that I'm trying to put in my business. So always to be innovative and to. So
the culture is a huge part of what I share over my experience with clients. A culture is the most important, because if you don't have culture in a business, then you don't have anything. People is very important, and it's understanding how to get the most out of those people. Now, I run them through a process and a program that I've developed myself, where I get them to feel part of the team. And once you get them engaged and they feel part of the team, everything changes. The challenge is that you've got to continue to do that until management understands that they can take over. What usually happens is management's not interested, and therefore the culture stops. So whilst I'm working with them, I can build that culture. The minute I walk away, they don't continue it. So it's important to have them continue what you have already implemented yourself. That's the culture side, right? And yes, you can build that culture in massive organizations, but it is easy to do, but hard to accept at senior management. Senior management just sometimes don't want to have, you know, they're not interested. It is shifting, but there's still an issue there. You know, as far as innovation, you know, I always say to my clients, one of the things that I enjoy doing is I work with my clients, and I'm always looking to continue their growth. Now, most people will have a 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plan, right? And they'll look at that and they'll go, okay, I'm at that point, and what's next? What I try and do with my clients is like, okay, tell me where you want to be, but then let's bring it back to 12 months, and then we start to break it down to 3 months. And then what I do is every month, so we plan 12 months and we work on the first 3, but what we do at the end of the first month, we're adding a month. So every month that we move forward, we always have 12 months planned. So that way it doesn't matter, even in 2 years' time, right? You're going month by month, but you're adding a month. So my clients always have a 12-month plan. Does 2 things. Number one, it keeps your clients engaged longer, right? Because most people go, I come in, we're at the end of the 3 months, do you want to continue or not? Well, when you're working on a continual program or a continual plan, they never want to leave you, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing, it allows you to plan innovation, right? Because you're getting them stimulated to go, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? And it starts to get them thinking about what's next and not worrying about today. Most businesses worry about today and don't worry about next week, next month, next year. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yes, Zara?
I was going to say, you were talking about influencing and then you kind of get stuck at the management level. I'm assuming that these are odd people that just come to you saying, I work somewhere and I'm not happy. I mean, isn't it better to get through to the people at the top to start with? Because I mean, I run a lot of PMO type kind of, programs. This is going back. And we always talk about, you have to start at the top, because if you don't get the stakeholder managers, those key stakeholders involved, it's very, very difficult to actually get that trickling to the top. It's always better if it comes sort of from the top down, because they're brought in then, you see, at the top.
Yeah, you are right. And I have been brought into organizations by senior management or CEOs, and I've worked with them first. And then when I go through and start to deliver the culture part of the deliverable, management love it, and they'll give you all the right indication, but they won't follow through with what they have to do afterwards. And that's where it stops. That's where it doesn't continue. And that's why I don't like working with corporates.
Can it not be a case of having one-to-ones and sort of
absolutely was one-to-ones as well, but if they're not willing to continue and follow through, it's very, very hard, because even the CEO or the general managers, it's a job for them, right? It's not the passion isn't there. It's very rare that you'll get people in those positions that are seriously passionate about what they do.
I think I hear what you're saying. There is a problem with some of the corporate companies, but they're not all like that. Some have developed, they have taken on the service delivery model, which they do care about the people, and it's not so much.
Yeah.
My husband's company is one of them. So I think, there are some corporates that are kind of the way you're talking, but there are other corporates where they are more open and they are more focusing on the people. I think it depends whether they put their people first rather than the client first. Would you agree with that? Yeah,
absolutely. There's been a shift. I haven't worked with corporates because I've chose not to work with corporates for a number of years now, but there has been a shift. So I don't disagree with you there. But in my experience, I just find that when you're working with a private organisation, they're more receptive to what you bring into the organisation, because they want to embrace it as well, because they love it. They haven't experienced that before, and it's their business, so they're passionate about the culture.
Yeah. No.
Sorry, Laszlo had a question.
No, just a quick question. And have you published any books or any other publications? I mean, your stories are really great. Okay, good. Thank you. Well done.
So yes, I have. I've just released that here in Australia last year, but it's actually I've done a contract with a publisher in New York who has got the world rights for it, and it'll be on the bookshelves in the US in July, but they're starting to market it now, and it'll be written in 20 different languages. So they've got the global rights for it, and it'll be coming out in June, July. So
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Available in Amazon.
I've got
it is currently on Amazon, yes, and if you get it, the books, the cover's actually changing, so yeah.
I've got my personally signed one.
How did you
You
manage
must be
that?
the very first Australian author.
Sorry, what was that, Paul?
You must be the very first Australian author.
I don't think so. we've got a lot of authors over here.
That's just a South African little stab there for you.
Yeah, I know.
So actually, Laszlo, I mean, I have said anyone that's been a featured guest here, where we're going to do a featured guest first edition book. So we're going to have 10 to 12 different guests in each edition. And Ralph is going to do the foreword in the first book.
Cool.
So although in the questionnaire it's asked, would you like to appear in your book? And you said, no, I haven't got time for that. I've got my own book. And I think, well, no, you are, because you're going to be the foreword in the book. So
good.
So that's the idea. So the front of the book will have something a bit about you in there anyway. And then anyone that wants to have their stories like now in the book, then I'm more than welcome.
This business that you're acquiring, is it in the food industry?
It's fresh chicken meat. It's chicken manufacturing. So it's basically processing chicken meat. Yeah, in the poultry industry. Something different, but still food.
Something because food industry is in your blood. What do you think about seafood and the way that maybe the sea can feed the humanity maybe in the future?
Look, the sea, it's like any food industry. The seafood industry here in Australia is very strong because we have a very big crayfish capturing, because we're an island, so there's a lot of good crayfish that they export. Look, it's not an industry that I'd like to go into because it's very similar to the produce industry. It's early hours. There's the marketing side, or the markets itself is very similar. The reason I like the poultry industry is because it's that they have to grow to order to process, so you can actually plan your growth. And my goal, I'll be very open and transparent. The business is currently doing just over 100 million. My goal is to build it to 500. So, within the next 3 to 5 years, and I will do that. There's no doubt about that. So, that's my next big challenge, because it's one thing talking about, I guess my credibility is there, and I've been there and I've done it and I've built the organizations, but I like to be current. I sold my last business in 2012, which is 10 years ago now. And it's sort of, that was a lifetime ago. So I like to be relevant when I'm speaking, and I think it also keeps you, not just relevant, but it also keeps you in the game, in tune with what's happening today, because what's happening today was different to what happened 10 years ago.
So are you going to run for presidency?
No, definitely not.
Ralph, are there not more
They need a
challenges
new one, a
with
proper
all the
one.
kind of chicken factories and everything on top of each other compared to how many years ago?
No.
No?
No. It's the fastest growing food industry in the world, because chicken meat is still fairly affordable. And beef and pork are just really getting too expensive, like really expensive. So the average chicken price here in Australia is like about $7 or $8 a kilo, $6 a kilo, whereas the meat price, red meat, is sort of hovering around the $35 a kilo mark, and pork is at $20. So it's
I didn't
affordable.
mean that. I was talking about the way it's frowned upon, because at the moment we have different prices for chicken in UK. I don't know how it is in Australia. So we have certain places where they're doing it organically. There's certain, they're free range. Then you've got all these ones in factories that are dying of disease.
Yeah.
It's kind of got a stigma attached to it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, not here, not over here. We're very different here. It's very regulated.
Okay.
And there's none of that. So you still have organic and free range, but it's humanely, they've cleaned, the industry's cleaned up massively. There's no more hormones used. It's a very, very clean industry.
You're in a better place than we are then, by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. So, Ralph, you've been very interesting. And I know you've probably got 101 different stories to tell. We've kind of run out of time, and we've gone over the time. But I do have a copy of your book here. It is an excellent read, so I do recommend others. If people want to get hold of it, you've provided a link or something.
Look, there is a I think they can go onto Amazon or Booktopia to buy it. I do have it on my website that people can buy it if they want it. If they want it signed, I'll do it from here. But yeah, it's available. It should still be available on Amazon.
It was pre-order and it's not ready till July. I just checked it. Is it just?
Well, that's okay. So that's because the US it's the changeover. So if you do want a copy, just send me your details and I'll post you a copy. So I'll just put my
no Kindle edition.
Right,
no,
so
not
I'm
yet.
not on LinkedIn, and what do I find you on Facebook? I suppose. How am I going to do that? I probably need.
There's my my email address if you're interested.
Thank you.
And Paul, I just thought I'd throw it in because you would like this. I did business with Pick and Pay for many years because they owned a company over here called Franklin. So I did a number of trips over to South Africa and visited a lot of farms and a lot of warehousing through Pick and Pay. So
at least you've come to a decent place then.
When with the last trip that I did was a number of years ago, but I did actually really enjoy Cape Town at the time. But I heard that that's changed quite a bit now, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think Cape Town's still okay. It's full sort of the last outpost.
Yeah.
So
anyway, yes.
Anyway, so it's been an absolute pleasure, Ralph, having you as a guest, the 73rd guest. You'll get a copy of this recording anyway, so you can look back and have it as memorabilia, or whatever you want to do with it. And yeah, some fantastic stories. I mean, I love the kind of the entrepreneurial journeys, and particularly from a childhood and learning from others, which I think, personally speaking, is the best form of education, because it really gears you up for what the real world is like, and not going out into a world that is alien to you because you've learned the textbook stuff. Right. So I admire what you've done. You've been successful. You've gone through the roller coaster ride and you've come out of it. You've helped many people. I admire what you do. And I'm sure that there's many thousands of people that are grateful for your advice, your mentoring, your capabilities of helping them turn around their business. So a huge thank you for everything that you've done. So thank you once again. You've been a great guest. I know we've kept you up late because it's
yes, I'll get to bed shortly.
Past your bedtime, but you're looking good. Got a great tan, which I'm jealous because it's winter here. Right. So yeah, I wish you all the best. Have a great weekend.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure and to be able to share some of my wisdom with everybody. So I appreciate all of you on the call, and I hope that you've gained some insight there. And if there's anything that I can do or support you with, please reach out. I'm very approachable, and be more than happy to. So yeah, connect with me and we'll touch base at some stage.
Excellent. I will share this in the group as well, and then other people that couldn't make it today can catch up on the recording. And if they want to reach out, they can do also. So thank you once again. And at some point, I want to come out to Australia and actually meet you in person.
That'd be great. Happy to host.
Love it. Okay. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend,
guys.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Let's catch up early next week.
Okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we will do. I've booked you. See you. Thank you. See you later.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.